Hey there, Amplifiers. Glad to have you tuned in. And we have an awesome, amazing guest who is with us today. You know, we only have so many hours in a day, and how we react to the stimulus that comes our way, how we manage and process our time and the things that are important to us are going to depend the results that we get. They're going to influence how we show up, the energy that we have, and what we're able to produce. And our guest today is really an awesome rock star professional who's an expert when it comes to getting things done. In fact, he's even the author of the book. And I'd like to welcome to Growth Amplifiers, David Allen. David, thanks for joining us today.
Hi, Kenny. Thanks for the invitation. Sure.
David, so you're a master expert, and you've been authoring content on helping people get things done for quite some time. How did you get started on this journey to develop this mastery?
I wound up loving clear space and found that it worked for me personally and just for everything I was doing. The more my head wasn't distracted by stuff, martial arts, etc., spiritual meditation practices, etc. And so as I got into the professional world, my own career started to get more complex. Whatever, I said, wait a minute, that's disturbing this clear space. How do I stay clear? And so I just was on a path to figure out how to maintain clarity, as my life got more complex. So I discovered technique by technique. There wasn't one morning I woke up with all of this. It was a bit of an extended process with several mentors with various pieces of this, and then challenged to sort of put this in a larger format for the corporate training world. And that's a very short version of a very long story.
So what I like about your book, as mentioned before we got started on recording this, is that your book not only just says, here's some information, it shares, here's some information that I've learned and tested, and here's how you can apply it. And then here's how we can even go in deeper on how this can provide better results. And I really love books like that. In fact, this book was recommended from an attendee from one of the masterminds that I put on for business advisors. She said, I was wrestling with my time and overwhelmed with all the different things I needed to try to get done. And this book was like a lifeline to help me see things differently. And it was written in such a way that people could follow the process, learn something, and actually implement it, which is a really big deal. So for those of the listeners who are tuning in that may not be familiar with the book and would want to learn a little bit more, could you give us an overview and some let's talk about the challenge that this book solves. What is the challenge that this book really helps people with?
The challenge is lack of clarity and the lack of confidence in that what you're doing is exactly what you need to be doing. And the challenge to do that is because of the increasing volume of inputs and channels that we're letting into our life that have potentially meaningful stuff, and the potentially overwhelming number of internal commitments we make about all those things. So that's the big issue. And it's not a new issue. People have always had to deal with stuff coming in. They had to rethink about it, had to figure out what was the best thing to do. It's just the volume has increased tremendously, and the speed of the change of things has increased tremendously. And quite frankly, the stress of opportunity, how many things you could be doing, Kenny, when you get off the phone with me, as opposed to, how many things are you not doing right now, Kenny, by the way? Yeah, and that's the issue. So that's the issue. The solution was, how do I somehow navigate the volume of inputs that I'm allowing into my life that are potentially meaningful? And then how do I make meaningful decisions about where they fit and so forth, in terms of all of my commitments about all these multiple levels of things that I might be interested in and need to fulfill and need to complete with myself. That's it.
So someone wakes up and they realize, all right, I got to get I got to get ready for work today. And then, oh, I've got to get my kids ready. And then, oh, I've got these appointments got to prepare for. Oh, and there's that project I need to get done. And oh, my social media's got to go out there. Oh, and I need to create content. And my wife needs me to pick up this thing today. And before you know it, you're like chasing yourself around, running frantic, and just completely overwhelmed. So,
And basically, you're letting stuff be driven by latest and loudest, as opposed to being strategically on about how you navigate those things.
and right now I'm in the middle of listening to your audiobook, and I love how it's narrated. You've got a great voice, which is awesome for podcasts, by the way. um,
Thanks.
Nice, powerful voice, and very confident. So could you share with the listeners kind of maybe a high level overview of some of the concepts that you share in the book? And I highly encourage you, if you haven't checked out this book yet, you definitely want to do that. There is the physical book you could buy if you like that, or there is the audio book that you can listen to, which that's happens to be my jam at the moment. But David, if you wouldn't mind sharing with the listeners just kind of that
So
high level overview, that would be awesome.
yeah, it's pretty. In a way, it's pretty simple. Basically, your head is a crappy office, and most people are still trying to use their head to remember, remind, prioritize, manage relationships between all of this input and all of these commitments that they have. You cannot do that in your head. It did not evolve to do that very well. I mean, it evolved to do cool things, but you still go to the store for lemons. You come back with 6 things and no lemons. Your head just screwed up because you tried to use it internally to try to manage all that. So a basic premise of my methodology was discovering the fact that you need to externalize all of that stuff. You need to see all the inputs, and you also need to externalize all of your own commitments at these multiple levels, and then be able to step back from a larger perspective and see that whole game and locate yourself in space and time relative to all that stuff. So it's about identifying the things, capturing. So there's a 5-step process, which is I just identified, which we all do. If you're
Mm-hmm.
trying to get your kitchen under control, you need to identify what's off. What do they mean? What's that? What does that mean? Where does that go? When are my guests coming over, and what do I need to do? It's a 5-step process: capture, clarify, organize, reflect, and engage. But the capture process would be if you wanted to do that about your life. I need to get my life under control and appropriately focused and confidently moving appropriately. I need to identify all the stuff that's got my attention. You need to capture that. That's not a small process, folks. How many things, how many would, could, should, need tos, ought to, little things, big things. I need cat food. I need a new vice president of marketing. I need to figure out if we should adopt or not. Come on. There's a huge amount of inventory that most people just have rattling around in their head subliminally. It creates this ambient anxiety that'll wake you up at 3 o'clock in the morning, that then prevents you from being really clear and present with making good strategic or critical or creative decisions in the moment, because you're so distracted by all that stuff. So it's like, how do I quiet the stuff? So my whole thing was uncovering the methodologies to quiet this stuff. Well, you need to identify what the stuff is, capture it, write it down, make a list of all the stuff that's got your attention. And then take each one of those things. And even if those of you listening or watching this that have a to-do list, pull out your to-do list. You still don't have next actions and outcomes probably on that list, which is the clarification process. You wrote down mom. Why? Her birthday is coming. Well, why did you write it down? Well, I should do something. What are you going to do? I don't know. So unfortunately, people still, even if you've captured stuff that have your attention, still have to go through a thinking process to decide what's the outcome that I'm committed to complete about this, if anything. What's the action step I need to take about it if I am committed to do it? So outcome and action are the thinking outcomes, essentially, that you come up with, applying that. And then you say, okay, how do I organize reminders of those things? I'm reminded to call my sister about my mom. I'm reminded that I want to celebrate mom's birthday. So those are 2 things that probably need to go on lists. Step 3 is organize. Okay, so have a list of outcomes like celebrate mom's birthday, and phone calls. Here's, I need to call my sister, right? And then you need to reflect on all that, make sure that you engage with your external brain as you've created it out there. So you're feeling confident about, okay, here are the four phone calls I need to make. Here's the 6 errands I need to run. Here's the 35 projects I've got. I think I'll take a nap. So, then your ability to be able to review and reflect on all of that stuff, and then feel much more confident about your choices, about what you do, and maybe more importantly, what you don't do about all that in any particular moment. So then step 5, when you engage, where do I put my attention? Where do I put my activity right now? Take a nap, have a beer, call my sister, sit down and engage with this crappy email that I have to respond to. And those are constantly intuitive, creative choices that there's no formula that's going to tell you what to do that, other than trust your gut, trust your liver, trust your spirit, trust your soul. I don't know, whatever you trust to trust once you've seen all that. But that's very hard to do if you haven't got it all out in front of you. Otherwise, you're going to be driven by latest and latest. There's a
That's
short version. There's a short version of a very long story.
Hey there, this is Kenny from Growth Amplifiers, here to ensure you get your awesome ideas into action to grow and improve your business and achieve your full potential. Take the first step by visiting growthamplifiers.com and clicking the Start Here button. Take the assessment to get your personalized score. Then select from free resources to learn how to improve your score. Don't wait. Be proactive and take action now by visiting growthamplifiers.com and clicking the Start Here button. And always keep on amplifying. Now, let's get back to the show. I love the two things. Just number one, laying it out on front of you so you can just really go to what do I need to focus on right now, and not just saying I'm going to do this really easy thing that is the screaming the loudest. What do I need to really put attention to that's going to be moving me forward? That's most important, and also the where you underline in the book, talking about, what are the things you should not be doing just in general. And a lot of people chew up their time and make that excuse over and over. I couldn't get to it. I didn't have enough time. And it's probably because they were doing things they should not be doing. So for the people right now, I know you've built an amazing organization. Who are the types of businesses and companies that you serve, and how do you help them implement these ideas?
All over the board. Really depends on the people inside those businesses.
Mm-hmm.
We've worked with some businesses that really get it, and some that look exactly the same and they don't get it.
Right.
Hard to say. It's more like people who sort of resonate to what this is about, and how critical or important or strategic these kinds of new best practices that you're not born doing, but you can be trained to do them fairly easily, frankly. And who are willing to buy into that. So we've had champions in pretty much every industry you can imagine, and teachers and physicians and CEOs of world-class organizations, and anybody, because it's universal stuff.
Right.
It applies to anybody who's got a busy life that wants to be able to do them easier, better, get more done with the effort they put into any of this. That's it. So this stuff is universal in that way.
So obviously, if people wanted to pick up a copy of the book, they or audiobook, they could do that. That's one way they can get the material. Where else could they go? And what's maybe a first step to take for somebody who's like, you know what, I need to do this because I'm tired of getting buried by my schedule.
If you like to surf the web, just go to our website, gettingthingsdone.com. If you're interested in a deeper dive into any of this, depending on where you are on the planet, we have certified trainers and coaches all over the world now. So just go to our website, gettingthingsdone.com, click on training and coaching, type in your country, and you'll see who we've certified to then deliver a deeper dive and elegantly, about this material and how to implement it right away, immediately. So that's one way to do it. Mm-hmm. If you just like kind of surfing the web and seeing short little snippets of stuff or whatever, just go to gettingthingsdone.com/YouTube, and you'll see, you can see me doing 3 TEDx talks. You'll see, little 2-minute snippets that I've done. You'll see all kinds of stuff if you want to just surf around and see if this stuff rings your bell at all.
Well, that's really cool. I tell people all the time, That it doesn't matter what you know, it matters what you're doing. And more importantly, if you're getting the result that you're after. And if you're not getting the result, if you're still being overwhelmed by your schedule and constantly having issues, you've got a gap somewhere, and you need to work on strengthening and elevating your mastery in that skill. And that sometimes requires getting a better framework or having a guide that can help you really delve in and strengthen those disciplines and muscles to get the result that you're looking for. So,
And let me add, Kenny, a little bit to that.
sure.
It's not about working harder. It's not about sweating more. It's not about spending more time doing anything. And to some degree, it's not necessarily about creating the result you think you're committed to. It's about being appropriately engaged with that. Appropriate engagement would be, I'm going to rest on that for 2 months and see what shows up. Maybe it's not time to do that yet. It's about appropriate engagement. And appropriately engaged. Are you appropriately engaged with your cat? Are you appropriately engaged with your health? Are you appropriately engaged with your life partner? Are you appropriately engaged with your technology? Are you appropriately engaged with your desk? It's like, and appropriate engagement doesn't mean that you're going to work harder. It just means I need to put things in their place, decide what that means, stick that there, and then go, okay, that's cool where it is, the way it is right now. And here's what I'm doing. And that may or may not look like working harder or longer. It may look like working less and stop and resting and recuperating more, having more fun. So
I think that's an important thing. That's actually probably one of the biggest challenges I see some of the people that I work with having is they're simply just trying to do too many things at the same time, and it costs their focus and their resources and bandwidth, and then they're not doing anything to the degree they should.
And by the way, there's absolutely nothing wrong with 24/7. If you want to be on, I've met people and engaged with some people that were so engaged in the work they were doing. And as long as they spend enough time for recoup time, napping and sleeping enough and, taking care of themselves, so what?
Right.
That was the life they chose. And that was what they needed to appropriately engage with, because they were in like an apprentice relationship where 2 years working with this senior person was going to launch their career into whole new levels of game. So it was worth them then making that decision that was the investment they needed to make. So it's not about working more or less. It's about being appropriately engaged with what your commitments are and where you're going.
I think that's beautiful. It's inspiring, and I'm excited to complete my listen of this book myself. So if this has resonated with you and you're looking to tune up, amplify, go to gettingthingsdone.com. Check it out. They've got a lot of great resources on there, and just spending a couple moments to check it out. You want to make sure that you're taking a new action to achieve new results. It's always about those little micro improvements that can help you get to the next level. So thank you, David, for tuning in, for sharing your insights with Growth Amplifiers. We highly appreciate that. Just one more thing I'll ask you. You've shared some great tips. The 5 steps has been awesome. But one of the traditions we have as we wrap these podcasts up is just if you could share something that you've learned on your journey that might help others on theirs. It doesn't necessarily have to be related to your your core content, but it could be.
Listen to the still small voice inside of you. It took me many years to learn that there was one, and that it was smarter than my conscious mind, but it was still me, just a higher version of me. And being able to listen to that and pay attention to that and its advice.
Awesome. Thank you very much. Appreciate your time and your energy. And thank you for sharing with Growth Amplifiers.
Thanks, Kenny. Bye.
Bye. To show your support, take a moment to amplify this message by sharing it online. To connect with me or gain more business growth insights, visit www.growthamplifiers.com. Thank you for your support.